Good morning, Justin. How are you?
All right, I think I figured out that my Ioniq 5 cannot handle dirt roads. Um, so I was, driving as any West Virginian would down some dirt roads, and then I noticed that my rear hatch started rattling, and it won't stop, and it now seems to be loose. I took it to my local Hyundai dealer, who is Ioniq
Yep.
5 certified, and they were like, "Yeah, we can't fix this. You have a loose rear hatch, and they're gonna have to consult the European service departments and get back to me." So these are the struggles of having a new model. Luckily, it's not the
Well,
powertrain.
yeah, seriously, you'll have to give us more details as you figure it out. I want to kick things off with Justin. Q2 numbers for EV sales are out, and obviously we talked a little bit about that last week. We got some late and great data from our friends over at Cox Automotive. We're talking about this everywhere on YouTube, everywhere on our website as well. New vehicle prices set a record in June, according to Kelley Blue Book, as luxury share hits new high. The highlight in this article, the low light actually is the fact that the average new car transaction price last month was $48,043. But if you scroll down here, where is it? I'm going to zoom on in on it. The average transaction price, Justin, last month for an electric vehicle was $66,997, an increase of $2,444 from June. What is your reaction to that? And we will, I promise, touch on hybrid powertrains here in just a second. $67,000. Wow.
Well, initial reaction, I guess I got a good deal, huh? But no, really, when it comes down to it, I see two things here. This is kind of an indicator of how Tesla continues to dominate EV shares because Tesla vehicles are expensive. You've got the top selling model, the Model Y, selling at like $65,000 now. Basically, it's really, really hard to find a sub $60,000 EV that gets more than 300 miles of range and charges in under 30 minutes. Putting those two things together, GM, Ford, Stellantis, others, they say that they're going to sneak in here with affordable, fast charging, long range EVs, but they haven't done so yet. So in 2022,
Mhm.
if you want to go electric and you want to travel frequently, you want to have enough range to not worry about it and have range anxiety, most buyers are spending over $60,000. So is it surprising to me? No, but it's really sad because one of the things we're going to talk about today, Zach, is EV market share kind of reaching a tipping point, but I'm going to push back a little bit against this. And we're not near a tipping point if the average EV transaction price is $67,000.
No, definitely not. At least not for the mainstream market. Now, let's pull it up on the screen. We also have data about hybrid powertrains. So while the EV price point last month, average transaction price, and I like how earlier in the Cox Automotive article they say it was over 66,000. No, it was just under $3 under 67,000. So let's be real about that. While they mentioned that their hybrid and alternative energy vehicles are selling at just over $39,000 in June, a $3,593 increase over May, and most importantly, an
Wow.
$8,453 increase versus a year ago. For some context here, so keep that in mind, an $8,453 increase year over year. As a market, Justin, if we come back up here to the top, we were up $5,410 for all vehicles year over year. We are seeing the largest price increases amongst hybrid powertrains, not EVs, but hybrid powertrains. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes sense, but I have a research idea, like a survey idea that somebody needs to do. Maybe we're going to do it. As buyers are spending more and more on their hybrid, plug-in, and full EV vehicles, I'm wondering if their plans for length of ownership are changing. If they're like, wow, I'm spending $10,000 more than I thought I would on my new car, I wonder if they plan on keeping it a lot longer than they would have otherwise. And then, of course, you could say, well, what's going to happen in reality when 2025 comes around and you've got a whole slew of EVs on the market with longer range, faster charging, and maybe even more affordable pricing? Um, I just wonder, like, people writing the checks, are they planning to just kind of get something better in a few years and just eat the difference? I don't know. What do you think, Zach?
I'm not sure. I think part of it has to do with how well that vehicle is going to retain its value and what it's worth. And it leads me to Christopher's comment here in the chat. I wonder what I could get for my EV6. And Justin, if you remember, we actually entered your VIN back on the YAA dashboard, and we've been keeping track of its value. I actually updated this just 5 days ago, I think on the Saturday night stream. We were looking at it. Let's actually update. Let's update your vehicle value again.
Let's do
And
it.
let's not change the mileage or anything like that. So it was, if you remember, I think about 2 weeks ago now, it was the valuation, the market value was $63,000. We ran it 5 days ago and it dropped $2,000 to 61,481. Let's keep all of the information.
Yeah, we're not going to
here.
tell
We'll
them
keep
that I
the
have a
mileage.
rattling hatch.
No. So it was $61,000 just a second ago. Let me update it. So we have been seeing down to $60,284. We have been seeing, and by the way, you can track the value of your vehicle for free if you just create a join at YAA.com account. We have been seeing the value of used cars start to come down just a little bit. And I think that will influence, Justin, how people think about holding on to these cars that they're spending $60,000+ dollars to buy. That being said, Black Book put out some data recently that shows that electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles retain their value better than ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles. So there's that to keep in mind as well. And if gas prices continue to go up, no one's going to be looking to sell these things. They're probably just going to hold on to them forever.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I can't believe that I bought an appreciating asset. That's just, is this the first good investment I've ever made?
It's lost $4,000 in value in 2 weeks. So
yeah,
haha. Cars are depreciating again, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe my car will just be like the new gold standard. And yeah, we're gonna like have a world economy based on EV as the standard. Now we've got some other kind of breaking news, I guess, which is the EV market share in the US. We finally have some Q2 numbers. I've been waiting for this day after day because we've got a great resource on joinyaa.com. If you look up EV market share, YAA, you'll find that I regularly update the latest numbers, not only the market share percentages, but also just the raw sales numbers. And one thing that stands out to me, because I'm looking at this for the very first time right now from Cox Automotive, Tesla is still the leader, but their market share, I mean, if you wanted to really push it to the limit, you could say that Tesla's market share tanked. Is Justice in the chat? What's Justice going to say? Just kidding, Justice. But Tesla's market share among EV sales in the US dropped from 75% last quarter to 66% this quarter. That isn't, I was joking. That's not really tanking, okay? That's just because there's more competition on the market today. So I'm really amazed. But the top headline right here is that EV sales are up 13% since last quarter. Not last year, last quarter. So 196,788 electrified vehicle sales. So that includes full EVs. Yeah, that's actually just full EVs. Sometimes they include plug-in hybrids, but wow, that's impressive. This is a record high, by the way. A record high at a time that overall new vehicle sales were down 20% year over year.
And so year over year, electric vehicle sales were up actually 66.4%.
Yes.
What's really nice about the data that Cox Automotive put together here is electrified vehicles. So that includes partial hybrid EVs that have electric components in them. Batteries is the word I was looking for there. In total, we're up 41% year over year. Percent market share that's electrified, Justin, 12.6% of vehicles sold this most recent quarter had a battery in them. I mean, that's huge, or an alternative fuel cell. But still, I mean, that's huge. We've obviously never seen numbers like that before. A year ago, that was 8.9% of vehicles sold. It's incredible to see the adoption happening. And let's be very clear, not 196,788 EVs, 245,156 hybrid vehicles. So it's a lot of hybrids that are making up that mix.
Yeah. But what's fascinating to me is that this is still a record high for purely electric vehicles. If you scroll down a little bit, Zach, it'll show you that we're at a new 5.6% full EV market share. That is up a few tenths of a percent since Q1 2022. That's a new record. So, but Zach, as we're about to talk about, there's some analysts from Bloomberg saying that this is a tipping point for us, but I'm not so sure. Let's see. What other data is there here to talk about?
Let's dive through this top 10 list
Yeah.
from Cox, and then yes, let's talk about those analysts and what they think. The Jeep Wrangler 4xe was the top selling plug-in hybrid in the U.S. last quarter, sold 10,861. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Is it 4xe?
I've heard people say 4 by E, like, math, 4 by E, but let's just go with 4xe. Who cares?
Thank you. In Q2 2021, there were 19 EV models for sale in the US. 1 year later, the number jumped to 33. Freshly launched EV models accounted for nearly 30,000 sales in Q2 2022. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 was the hottest newcomer. 0 sales in Q2 2021, 7,448 in Q2 of 2022. The Chevy Bolt is back after suffering through months of no production due to battery issues. The Chevy EV is running again. Nearly 7,000 were sold in Q2. Obviously, we talked about that last week. That was a big storyline for GM, the fact that the Bolt is actually back. They had pretty much 0 EV sales in the prior quarter, and now that they got the Bolt again, obviously they had 7,000 units that were sold. Toyota continues to be the top player in hybrid. We all know that. In the first half of 2022, roughly 55% of all hybrids sold in the U.S. were sold by Toyota and or Lexus. That's incredible. Ford was closest at 11.7. So if you think about this, Justin, we have Tesla, who is the obvious market leader in fully electric vehicles, and we have Toyota, who is the obvious market leader when it comes to hybrid powertrains. That's nuts.
Yeah, so they're going to battle it out at the price point, and obviously Toyota's hybrids have quite a bit more affordable options, but even with those, we've seen markups of RAV4 Primes up to $65,000-$70,000 in some cases, and that's how much a Model Y costs. But I would be interested to see how do the macroeconomics change over the next year? Like, do we get into a deeper recession, or do we have a quick recovery? And then are we going to see the truly affordable options coming to market? We saw that 33 new models have hit the market. Well, what about the Chevy Equinox that's supposedly going to start around $30,000? I don't buy that. The Honda Prologue will be coming next year. The Fisker Ocean. In 2024, we'd be looking at a base model in the $30,000 range, $35,000 range. So I'm just going to be interested to see if what all these people on the street have been telling me when they see my car ends up being true. I've had so many people in small town America say, I would buy electric if they didn't cost so much, or I would buy electric if they charged a little faster. And then when I push back and say, well, how fast do you need them to charge? And they say like 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, we're just a few years away from that. I think that we could be on the verge of a huge transition here, but these latest numbers just show that EVs are still expensive. Adoption is increasing, but I think it's too quick to draw any massive conclusions here.
We've got Sean reminding us when it comes to Chevy. Yeah, the Bolts are out there, but with $6,000 plus an additional dealer markup. Hard pressed to imagine that that's not going to happen to the Equinox as well if it does have an MSRP in the 30s. Now, the other piece to this Cox Automotive story, just to pull it back up on the screen, pickup trucks are growing in popularity. The Hummer, the Rivian R1T, the Ford Lightning, and hybrids, the Maverick and F-Series, are now available, and more than 45,000 were sold in the first half of 2022. I like this, how they put in parentheses, still no Cybertruck. We obviously have more electrified and hybrid pickup trucks coming to the market over the next 6 months, over the next 12 months, 18 months, obviously a push towards that direction. It's interesting to see. Obviously, there's a lot of consumer demand there. The fastest selling, the highest selling vehicles in the United States are obviously pickup trucks. So you've got to imagine that we'll see an even larger increase in market share going towards electrified vehicles as we see more pickup trucks, more affordable pickup trucks come onto the market as well.
Yeah, hybrid, and even if we end up having plug-in hybrid pickup trucks, those are great options for fleets or just anyone who actually uses their truck on a day-to-day basis for work, because charging infrastructure is going to continue to lag for the next, honestly, 2 to 5 years, depending on how quickly a national charging network gets set up. But the reason I really do emphasize the promise of hybrid trucks is because, I mean, the 45,000 number that they shared, Cox Automotive, I've done the math myself, and only about 10,000 of those would be fully electric trucks. And then if you were to find what's the average transaction price of those 10,000 fully electric trucks on American roads, well, let's see. There's about 300 Hummer EVs that cost about $120,000. You've got some Rivians that right now, the ones that are on the road, are over $100,000. And then maybe about 2,000 to 3,000 F-150 Lightnings I'm not sure what prices they're actually walking out the door with, but you're going to be looking at average electric truck transaction prices definitely over $80,000 right now, probably $100,000.
Yeah, honestly, and then on the used market when they're not sold new, I mean, Hummer EVs are selling for $250,000. So I don't know if that's any indication of obviously we know about the Ford F-150 Lightning markups as well.
And I do want to touch on electric trucks or just hybrid trucks a little bit more. Let's actually talk about hybrid trucks. So
Sure.
when it comes to fuel savings or even carbon emissions, tailpipe emissions, all of that stuff, you got to think about percentages. So if a truck gets 20 miles per gallon on average, right? And they drive, I don't know, let me do some math on my phone real quick. And they drive maybe 15,000 miles a year. No, let's make them
Yeah,
they're a working truck. So 25,000 miles a year divided by 20
a
miles
lot
per
of miles.
gallon. That's generous gas mileage, by the way. That's generous gas mileage. So that would be 1,200 gallons of gas times five, let's say 450 a gallon. 5,600.
The U.S. government has the fuel savings
Yes,
calculator. You've seen that, right?
I should have done that. Yeah, they do.
Let's
But
do it. Let's do it right now.
let's do it.
Here, I'll pull it up on my screen and we can do it together. Because this is important. It's an important
And
point
while
that
you
you're
pull it up,
trying
I
to
want to
make
share
here.
with the listeners. So, anytime you increase efficiency by 25%, that's a huge jump in efficiency and fuel savings. Anytime that a pickup truck goes from 20 miles per gallon to 25 miles per gallon, that's going to save the owner or the operator a lot of money on fuel, and it's going to reduce tailpipe emissions a lot, which is something I care about. So, it's just fascinating
So
when you
Justice,
think, what's up?
which help me out here. Let's do the comparison. So I've got 2022 Ford. Which one do you want to do? Do you want to do the fully electric? Do you want to do a hybrid?
I want to do just the base or the regular combustion powertrain, I guess a V6 compared to the F-150 Lightning. Let's do that.
Okay. So I'm gonna pull in the F-150 Lightning first. I know this is probably small for everyone. So there's F-150 Lightning, and
This
we'll
is an
just do
awesome
basic
tool, by the
inquiry.
way.
Yeah, this is fueleconomy.gov. They have this calculator here. It's not the sexiest user interface, but it's pretty good compared to the same model year Ford F-150 pickup truck. We
Yeah,
do
I've
four-wheel
never
drive
seen a
for
sexy government website.
select. Okay, so let me come down here. So we're going to personalize our driving habits. So we're going to say 25,000
Yeah,
miles a
it's a
year.
work truck.
How much are we doing in the city?
In the city, let's just do 50%.
Half our driving in the city, keep our vehicle for 10 years. And this is using current electricity and gasoline prices. Vehicle A over 10 years. Vehicle A is our Ford F-150 Lightning. Over 10 years is going to cost us $16,230 in fuel costs. Vehicle B is going to cost us $59,640 in fuel costs. That is a $43,410 10-year savings. That is mind-boggling.
This is why fleet operators are the most excited to go electric right now, because fleet operators who drive 25, sometimes more than 25,000 miles a year, they have the most money to save when it comes to electrifying their fleet. This is fascinating.
This is mind-boggling. And especially if we were comparing it to like prior model years of the F-150 as well, you could just begin to imagine how much having this electric vehicle or even the hybrid powertrain would just save you, especially in that fleet circumstance. It's a great example.
And now, I mean, honestly, here's a interesting perspective of EV ownership myself, because this is my first EV, and we've noticed that now that we don't pay for fuel hardly at all. I mean, we pay like 15 cents per kilowatt hour at home, don't pay for Electrify America. This is weird, but we drive more just because you're not having to think, oh, I don't want to go there because I'll have to pay $10 in gas. Since it's free or almost free, we're driving more, and we've already put 7,000 miles on the car. So it's just, I mean, I wonder if fleet operators and those who, maybe not a fleet, but they use their truck every day for work, if they might be willing to take a contract for a job that's a bit further, make more money on that contract if they don't have to worry about spending $60, $75 in fuel to get there. So
Yeah,
I almost wonder if there could be like a business side incentive to going electric. You might be able to expand your
there
revenues.
totally is.
Interesting. Just
Yeah,
the
there totally is.
possibilities are endless.
Let's talk about, Justin. I know we got to talk about how we're kind of at a tipping point, but I also want to mention you sent me an article from Clean Technica that ranked the top 10 countries in terms of EV adoption. How about we run through that list?
Yeah, and just so you know, there's a part two. So once we get to the bottom, you'll have to click on part two. But yes, it's a very fascinating list. This is from all of 2021's data. Now, why did we pull this up? Because it takes a few months to get the latest data. So this, in my opinion, is the best data we have right now from 2021.
So in 8th to 10th place, we have a three-way tie of Finland, Netherlands, and Denmark. Let's talk a little bit before we get into this top 10. What was the methodology for this, Justin?
Well, they have included both plug-in hybrids and fully electric vehicles. So that is a bit of a catch. However, we got to keep in mind plug-in hybrids are not going anywhere. We've seen that they're more affordable. The methodology, the point system, I don't even want to talk about that. Let's just talk about the raw EV sales and who's selling the most EVs, because the point system, that's a bit of a, personal bias, a bit of a twist.
That's to be clear, though, that's what they've done is they've essentially taken the countries that are selling and have the most EV adoption and ranking them.
And made it
so
fancy
we've got
with the
again
point system.
Yeah, exactly. So we got Finland, Netherlands, and Denmark 8th through 10th. Let me go here. The US of A in 7th place. There you go.
Yeah. But at the end of 2021, we did hit 5% market share, or like 4.8% at the end of 2021. So, I mean, we're getting somewhere, but it's nothing compared to what we've seen in many European countries and even, drum roll please, China. That's what we're going to get to in a minute.
Iceland in 6th place. EV sales hit or excuse me, but really when the global average EV sales is still in the single digits and you're improving from 47 to 65%, it's hard to justify keeping you off the top 10 list. In Iceland, 65% of new vehicles sold are electric vehicles. That's incredible.
Yeah, it gets more incredible. There's countries over like 80%.
Germany at number 5 on the list. Let's keep going. Sweden, 42% of vehicles sold in Sweden are going to be some sort of electrified powertrain. Do I really got to click on part 2 down here?
Yep, it goes right up there. Part 2, that's where it gets exciting. Scroll up just a little bit. There you go. Part 2. This is where it gets exciting.
All right, South Korea. Why is South Korea number 3 on the list?
Let me find out.
EV sales pushed over 100,000 in South Korea. Oops, let me get rid of this ad.
So, it's all about the rate of increase in EV adoption. That's what this Clean Technica article kind of adds their own twist to. So in South Korea, 7% EV market share. It's not that much more than the US, but they threw them so high on the list because in just 1 year, South Korea jumped from 3% to 7%.
And they've got Hyundai Kia over there, and obviously they're pushing out more and more vehicles. Norway at number 2 on the list, 86% of cars. That is insane.
That is insane. Now, I've known people who've gone and traveled around Scandinavia, and they've said that the EV infrastructure there is probably a glimpse into the future, because with $500 billion committed among among automakers to electrify their lineups, I would say that the way that charging stations are just all over the place in Norway, that's got to be the future here, right? I mean, they're not going to just toss $500 billion down the drain.
And number 1 on the list, Igor in the chat has been saying it left and right, China. Wow, 3.4 million electric vehicle cars and vans sold globally. Sold in China, roughly half of the global total.
Yes,
wild.
that is the world's largest electric vehicle market, is China, and that's why Tesla prioritized building a gigafactory there. China has 15% EV market share. That's really high considering how large of a nation that is. BYD, we don't ever talk about BYD here. I mean, here in North America, there are some BYD electric buses on American roads, but we don't have any electric light passenger vehicles. BYD and Tesla, those are the 2 big names in electric vehicle sales in China. The whole other side of the world, and we don't think about it enough, to be honest.
Many countries, it seems like from some of the research I had done, Justin, it's like when you pass this 5% market share threshold, that's when the revolution starts to happen towards electric vehicles. At least that's what we've seen in other countries. And obviously here in the United States, we, for multiple quarters are over 5% of new vehicles sold are fully electric vehicles. And then obviously nearly 13% had some sort of hybrid or electric powertrain in the most recent quarter, excuse me. You've got to imagine, obviously, if the infrastructure can keep up, like imagine a world where there's some sort of tax incentive plus manufacturing continues to get a little bit better. We got to be looking at some 20+% sale. Like 1 in 5 cars are going to be some sort of hybrid powertrain in the next quarter, in the next couple quarters. Like I imagine it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, but I'm a bit pessimistic, and here's why. 3 out of 4 car buyers in the United States chooses a crossover full-size SUV or truck, and we are severely lacking in sub $70,000 options in exactly those
True.
market segments. I don't think we're going to get above 20% market share until we've got, you've got your $45,000 electric trucks or your $35,000 electric crossovers on the road. Right now, the government and various predictions say that we'd be at about 50% EV market share in 2030 in the United States. Here's my golden prediction, okay? I'm going to
Hmm.
say we'd be about 35% EV market share in 2030. That's still a
Wow.
massive increase in just 7.5 years' time. That's a huge achievement in itself. But I think this is going to be because of affordability. And with all that we're seeing in the prolonged supply constraint crisis that we're all going through, not just in the EV world, but in the overall automotive market, more and more
Yep.
drivers are just going to decide to keep whatever vehicle they have until it falls apart, until the wheels fall off. Shout out to BZ4X. Um, people aren't going to be jumping to go buy some $70,000 car if the U.S.'s median income is $70,000. So I don't know.
What do you,
I, I
what do you
I
make
enjoy
of?
driving. What's that?
Oh no, I was gonna say, what do you make of all the layoffs that we're hearing that are coming down? Like Rivian, obviously on Friday is going to announce layoffs to their staff. We had Tesla layoffs earlier this year. Like obviously, those are not a good sign for figuring out these production bottlenecks, manufacturing more vehicles. I guess I'm just curious your take on that.
I guess my take was they're trying to stay a few steps ahead of the curve because everyone's anxious about the overall economy, a recession, how, you know, people's income being pulled back is going to affect their desire to buy an expensive electric vehicle. But there's also something we can't forget, which is that the electric vehicle manufacturing supply chain and everything from the small scale suppliers to Rivian itself or Tesla itself, it's all built around the assumption that automation is going to eventually drive much of the production of these vehicles. I
Sure.
mean, I have seen that a lot of the layoffs are going to be at the corporate level. So
Yeah,
this is cost cutting, isn't it?
I think so. I think so. And Mark's right. Rare earth metals don't create themselves.
Yes. Except
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
core of an exploding star. They do create themselves at the extreme heat of an exploding star, Mark. Don't forget that. Nuclear
There you
fusion.
go. So figure out a way to capture rare earth metals in that context, and I'm sure you'll be a very very wealthy man, Justin.
Oh man.
We've got here from Suzanne an interesting question. Why don't we wrap on this? Have any EVs been in the Daytona 500 or any other races other than Formula E racing? How will EVs impact future stock or other car racing? The reason I bring that up, you remember when drones were first coming out?
Yep.
And then there's like drone racing and things like that to help it become more mainstream. I think that's a super interesting question. Like, what happens in the world when we start allowing alternative powertrains? And I think the answer to like the Daytona 500 is no. There haven't been any EVs, produced that have been in that context. But it'll be a way to help. Also, it's not always about market share; it's also about public perception. And I think that's an interesting way to kind of maybe for mainstream America make EVs more accessible.
Yeah, while EVs are, we have no doubt that EVs are performance capable. I mean, we've seen records broken by these EVs. A lot of enthusiasts who are interested in racing and dare I say NASCAR, they want electric vehicles to have more emotion, and part of that probably means make them loud. So while Formula E has been quite popular for the past decade in Europe, it's been slow to catch on, and I think we're quite far from that taking on in the United States. I know that if you go to a track, like a conventional track where you can buy a day pass, you'll see tons of Teslas there. And as more and more electric vehicles come to market, we're seeing more EVs at the track, but I would say we're quite far from it becoming like a mainstream thing in the US. Would be fun though.
It would be pretty cool, and I'm telling you, it's unlike just seeing the numbers of how many EVs are being sold, how many hybrids are being sold. That's a way to get people excited about cars. It's why I think back to like Acura, they resurrected the NSX. The reason they resurrected the NSX is to get people excited about the brand again. It's like you do some of these kind of more sporty things just to get energy behind what's going on. It's not always about just getting more butts into seats, selling more cars. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, which the whole idea of fast racing EVs reminded me that the Rimac Nevera is now in production. This is a hyper electric sports car. It's crazy. Give me a guess on the 0 to 60 time, Zach. What's the most absurd 0 to 60 time you would expect from a brand new performance car, like a hyper car?
I mean, if can you get under 2 seconds? Can it be
Yes,
1.9?
1.85.
Wow.
Yeah, I wonder how much it costs. Look that up real
That's
quick.
gonna hurt your insides, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've done like 4.8 seconds in my car and it hurts my insides. So the Rimac Nevera. Oh, the price point, Zach. $2.4 million.
Uh-huh. Go figure out how to capture those rare earth metals from those exploding stars, and we'll get back to it.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Well, Justin, thanks for making the time to do this today. If anyone's interested in joining me, I'll be on the Ray and Zach channel with Ray in about 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about those damn BMW subscriptions. Justin, you put an article up on the Joint YA website about that as well. So please join us over there. Should be interesting to get Ray's take on that. Justin, thank you for your time today, as always, and I'll see you again. I won't be here on Friday, but I'll see you next Monday.
Yeah, I'll see you Monday, and I'll be back Friday, most likely with Justice. So we'll see what electric news we can talk about in just a few days' time. Thank you, Zach.
See you guys.